Welcome back, Bombshells, to the Bombshell Kitchen. I am Seychelle, and as promised today, we're talking about emotional eating. So this felt like a good second video because a lot of people reached out to me after the first video about how I broke the emotional eating cycle. So this video actually goes along with a blog post on my webpage, so please check that out too. You can read it at bombshell with an E, kitchen.com. And again, wrote that and recorded this video to help answer people's questions. So I had a wake-up call in July of 2019 when I saw a picture of myself and I didn't recognize myself because I'd become so large. When I got serious about my health in January of 2020, I kind of piddled around between July and January. One of the things I had to do was figure out why I let myself go. I was a high school and college athlete. Used to be an avid runner and weightlifting. And then in 2019, I see this picture and I'm like, I don't even know who this woman is anymore. So one of the things that I realized about myself was I was an emotional eater. So before I go any further, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just sharing what I have learned through my journey, my research, and my personal experience. Everyone's experience is different. I'm just sharing mine in hopes that it might help someone. So I love to eat. I still do. I still eat the things that I love. But I had to go through a season where I had to learn to make better eating choices. Now, I'm not talking about restrictive eating. There is this misconception that in order to lose weight, you have to essentially eat nothing, and that's not true. The biggest thing you have to remember when you're eating is that you have to eat to fuel your body. Now, I'm going to say that again. You have to eat to fuel your body. That being said, when I was emotionally eating, I was not eating to fuel my body. I was eating to soothe my feelings. And actually through my research, when I realized I was an emotional eater, I started reading up on it. And one of the things I learned that emotional eating actually encompasses a couple eating behaviors, not just soothing your feelings, but it's if you eat when you're consciously not hungry, when you're stressed or bored, when food makes you feel safe, if you use it as a reward constantly. It's okay to reward now and again, but if you're constantly using it to reward yourself, or if you just feel like you lack control around food, like you just can't stop eating, all of those scenarios can encompass emotional eating. Not just soothing your feelings, but personally I used it to soothe my feelings because I was covering up a lot of trauma. So then I was like, well, why am I emotionally eating? Like, why? Why do I sometimes have a hard time controlling what I'm doing? So this is my understanding. Again, not a professional, just my understanding. When we're stressed, our bodies create cortisol. And that triggers a fight or flight instinct or response. And you know what makes us feel better when cortisol is released into our system? Dopamine. And you know what creates dopamine? Well, dopamine can be created by eating sugars, fatty foods, carby foods, salty foods. So cortisol is created. It creates this craving for these foods, these salty, sugary, fatty foods. Dopamine's created, and it gives us this temporary euphoria, feeling better. But when we're done eating, we feel bad for overeating or for eating that stuff that's bad for us, or maybe putting on an extra pound or two because we ate so much the past week, and that creates cortisol again. And then that cortisol makes us crave those sugary, fatty, salty foods, which we eat, which creates the dopamine, and it just becomes this vicious cycle of eating and gaining and eating and gaining. So I had to stop this cycle because I was stuck in it. I'd eat and I'd feel bad, and then I'd eat and then I'd feel bad, and I'd eat and I'd feel bad. So what I realized was I had a lot of mess I had to deal with. I had a lot of trauma. And first and foremost, I had a very low opinion of myself, especially when it came to my physical appearance, which I think surprises people in my life. But I did actually feel much better about my physical appearance these days. One of the causes of that was I was relentlessly bullied growing up by how I looked and by my size. Especially in elementary, those primary growing ages in elementary school, just relentlessly bullied. So looking back at pictures of young me, I realized I wasn't overweight. I was tall and built wider than the rest of my classmates, but like you could see, rib bone, collarbone, like I was actually pretty slender, just larger than my classmates. And my grandfather, on my mother's side, was bipolar and would make fun of me as well. And that will really affect a child. He would sometimes call me like fatty and make comments like that. And so I had this very low opinion of myself. On top of that, I hadn't really mourned the loss of my parents. I lost my parents in a 4-year time span. My mom died in 2013. She was 49. My dad passed in 2017 at the age of 59. And when my mom died, I didn't really grieve her because I threw myself into taking care of my dad. She passed, they had been married for 33 years, and he struggled. And so I was busy like taking care of my dad and keeping him preoccupied. And so when he passed, I suddenly had what felt like nobody. And it made me realize I had no support at home because I was in a really unhealthy marriage that honestly was incredibly unsafe at times in my life. So I ate to deal with the sadness and the trauma and the emotional abuse. And I ate. So I had to break the cycle. So to break the cycle, I got rid of negative people in my life. I started going back to church because I really needed to start feeding my soul. And every morning I would look in the mirror and I would make a point to find something that I liked about myself. And I started with the things that I liked. Like it was hard for me to say, I love this about myself at this point in time because I didn't realize it, but I actually really hated the person I'd become. I felt like just a shell of a person, not who God wanted me to be. I had really gotten off track. So I made a point to look in that mirror and be like, I like the fact that you're smart. It's hard. I couldn't start with the physical stuff because I hated that physical appearance part. Or I like the fact that you're so good at your job. I like the fact that you make a difference in people's life. So those are where I started, and eventually I could pick out physical things like I like the color of your eyes. I like the shape of your hair. Oh, I like the fact that you're starting to get some shoulder muscles. So these are things that I was able to start saying about myself, but it took a little bit of time, but I made a point to do it every morning. And then, but that's a mindset, like that's a whole mind change. And every time I started thinking something negative about myself, I had to consciously stop. And that was hard too, because I was so used to being beat down for so many years that it was kind of hard to fix that mindset. But now making that effort, I really see what an incredible person I am. But that's hard. Learning to love myself was harder than losing the weight, to be honest. But as soon as I learned to love myself, the weight started coming off, dealing with that trauma. Got a little emotional there. So after that, one of the ways I kind of helped keep myself on that positive mindset was I wrote words of affirmation throughout my house. One of my favorite quotes is from Catherine McKenna, and it says, "Every time I witness a strong person, I want to know, what dark did you conquer in your story? Mountains do not rise without earthquakes." And that really spoke to me because I always had this why me mentality. I lost my parents. I was in this failed marriage. I had other trauma I had to deal with, but all those dark moments have made me a mountain. They've really made me this incredible person. And that actually has led to probably my favorite affirmation in the house. And it says, and this is the PG version, but it says, "You are a mother effing mountain." And I tell myself that when I need to pump myself up, I say, "You are a mother effing mountain." And then I can just go out there and do it because I love being a mountain. So working on my mindset was instrumental in helping with emotional eating. So if you are not sure where to start and you just feel like you're spiraling out of control, especially with your eating, if you can't figure out the trauma or what's going on, go to a counselor. There's lots of great therapists and counselors out there. So when I kind of felt like I had a handle on that, I started really looking at what I was eating because I knew that was my problem, right? I was eating too much. So I started tracking what I was eating through the Under Armour Fitness Pal app. There's a lot of apps out there. I just like that app. That's my personal favorite. I do pay for the full version to track my macros, but there are free apps out there. So when I started this, I was going to be 100% honest with myself. And honesty is the key here. You can't just leave out stuff that you're eating and calories and sugars. You have to come to terms with the change. You have to hit that point where you're like, I need to make a change. So I recorded everything. And you know what? I ate a lot. It was eye-opening. And truthfully, my main meals weren't really bad. It was the snacking that got me. And I snacked on everything, y'all. And I love snacking, so I don't keep snacks in the house. I snacked on candy, chips, delicious snack mixes. Who doesn't love a good snack mix? Cupcakes if they were brought into work, cookies. I was consuming a lot of calories a day just by snacking. So I did some research, and to help with this, what I found really worked for me is one, I wrote myself a note on the refrigerator, still there. It says, are you hungry or is this emotional? So then I kind of really had to think about why am I standing there with the refrigerator door open? And the next thing that helped me with this was doing a fast, a 16 8-hour fast. So for 16 hours a day, I did not eat. And for 8 hours a day, that's when I got my nutrient goals in. So I did some research and I was like, I'm going to shoot for 1,400 calories a day within that 8-hour window. And the whole idea is, for me at least, was I'm going to really challenge myself. And I love a good challenge, y'all. I'm like competitive by nature. I'm going to challenge myself not to eat in that 16-hour window. So I can really think about, is this hunger or is this emotional? And between the fasting and starting to walk every day, run, walk occasionally, and lifting, I lost about 8 pounds that first week. But again, I was 297 pounds when I got serious in January. So, you can lose kind of a lot at first and it kind of slows down. So just to throw that out there. And the fast helped. The fast really helped. And then I started working with Gennaro, my strength and conditioning coach, and he actually increased my calorie intake because I still wasn't eating enough to fuel my body. Because if you're going to, run and lift and do these exercises, you still need to fuel your body. And I actually noticed a huge difference in my energy levels. So I said this in the last video. I'll say it again. It is worth hiring someone who knows what they're doing with nutrition and strength and conditioning. Like, do your research. There are a lot of people out there. Not everybody's good. Find someone who is good. So this video is about emotional eating. So I do want to cover in a future video what I eat, like my calorie goals, my macros, carb cycling that I do, and all the other fun jazz. Because I do eat carbs. I know for some people it's a 4-letter word, but I do high carb days and low carb days. But that works for me. So we'll touch on all that in another video. On this one, I just want to, I just really wanted to focus on how I broke that cycle. And so these are my big takeaways. So actually, before I do my big takeaways, the last thing that I had to learn to do was forgive myself. I don't know why I developed this never wanting to disappoint people, make people happy mentality. So if I messed up, if I didn't do well, whether it was if I messed up with someone else professionally, personally, I had a really hard time forgiving myself, and I would eat and then I'd feel bad about eating. So I had to learn to be like, Sashelle, you're human. It's okay to mess up. It was not intentional. Same thing with eating. If you eat something that's really bad for you, or you fall off the wagon on a weekend, or like, don't even get me started on how bad I did in the month of December. But you know what? I work out consistently. 95% of what I eat is really, really good. So it's okay. you know, forgive yourself, move on, get back on the wagon. So these are my big takeaways about emotional eating. Number one, there were big reasons behind my eating. I wasn't just eating to eat. I was eating to mask pain. Number two, weight gain and the retention of weight can absolutely be caused by trauma. When I started working through my trauma, the weight just kind of fell off there for a little while. So if you've got some trauma that you're holding on to, go talk to someone. Number three, dealing with your trauma is one of the best things you can do mentally and physically. Number four, you have to fuel your body with food. You have to eat. You can't stop eating. All right? It's what you eat that counts. It's how much you eat that counts. All right? And again, whole other video, but we'll talk about that. Number five, I love myself, and I'm an incredible person. And that shouldn't be something, that shouldn't be a takeaway that anyone has to do, but I feel like a lot of us feel that way. Like, we don't love ourselves. You got to look in the mirror and love that person in the mirror. I love myself, and I'm incredible. Number six, I have to forgive myself. I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. I have to forgive myself. And the last takeaway is I'm worth it. I'm worth the money for a gym membership. I'm worth the money for healthy foods. I'm worth the money to get my hair did. I'm worth it because I'm incredible. And you know what? You're worth it too. So if you're having issues, again, go talk to someone, work through that trauma, try to figure out what is sending you to the kitchen, and then just make that mental mindset to, all right, I'm not hungry. I'm going to drink some water and keep going. Now, if you are hungry, eat. But if you're not hungry, drink some water and move on. So thank you so much for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe and please share it with your friends. Would love to get 1,000 followers or more as I go through this process. Like I said, I'm 72 pounds down. My goal is 30 to 50 more, depending. Every 10 pounds, I'm going to kind of look and see if I like where I'm at. But thank you again for watching. Please check out my blog at bombshellkitchen.com. Again, it's shell with an E. And I'm going to have the link in the description as well. And God bless and good luck on your journey.